Last time on Final Fantasy III, #Craig revealed he was just getting started. Death found himself befuddled by the story, and our poor heroes met untimely demises left and right. How will our brave heroes fare this week? Alrighty, welcome back to Final Fantathon, our quest to casually let's play every single mainline Final Fantasy game. And we are, I don't know if knee-deep is the right word, maybe like pinky-toe deep into Final Fantasy III. And I have a lot to talk about today, so I'm going to go ahead and get... I even have a list. I wrote a list of stuff to talk about today, because I'm like, I got a lot to talk about. So, before we get started, real quick, I wanted to talk about this version, because I had a lot of questions in the comments on the YouTube videos about why we're playing this version and talking about other versions and stuff. And I don't think I did a really good job of, like, actually clearing that up in the first episode because I was busy making sure the DS worked and everything. So let me just clear it up really quick. So Final Fantathon is a quest to play through all of the original Western releases of the mainline Final Fantasy games. So the idea is we are going to play whatever release came out first in the Western world. We're doing that for a couple reasons. For one, we're doing it because I missed out on all the original versions and I wanted to play them. For two, the idea behind Fantathon is to kind of time capsule the games the way that a lot of people experience them for the first time. So if you played this game right when it came out back in 2006 and then you want to see that playthrough again, this is where you could do that. The goal behind Final Fantathon is not to play the best versions. I'm very, very aware that the PSP version, the Famicom version, a lot of the fan-translated versions are much better. But this is the first release that we got over here, so that's why we're playing it. In the future, I may play some better versions of some of the games. For example, this one we could play some of the better versions. Final Fantasy II, we could play the PSP version. Stuff like that. I would love to do those in the future, but that's not the main goal of Fantathon. The main goal of Fantathon is to play the original versions and get a baseline of all the games so that when we're done, we can actually go back and do like a rating of all of them in a row, you know, for the original releases in the Western world, which were the best, which were the worst. I'll probably even do like a video where I talk about my favorites and my least favorites and which ones I thought were the best and which ones I thought were the worst. So we're doing like a baseline for all of them. So hopefully that makes more sense. It's also a bit confusing because Final Fantasy II and Final Fantasy III were released so far in advance than all the other ones. Final Fantasy I came out immediately, Final Fantasy IV came out immediately but was called Final Fantasy II. Final Fantasy VI came out immediately but it was called Final Fantasy III. And Final Fantasy II and Final Fantasy III weren't released until way later. Final Fantasy II was released on the PS1, and Final Fantasy III was released on the DS in 2006. So it's a bit confusing because we're like jumping all over the place. But once we're done with this one, we'll be doing Super Nintendo for 4, PS1 for 5, Super Nintendo for 6, and then all the rest of them will be, you know, the releases that you're used to. Final Fantasy 7 on PS1, Final Fantasy 8 on PS1, Final Fantasy 9 on PS1, Final Fantasy 10 on PS2, yada yada, you know. So it'll make a lot more sense when we get there. This one's just weird because it was released so far later because they never released it here. Also, while I was doing some research trying to figure out a little bit more about the history of Final Fantasy III, I also found out there is a Wii Virtual Console version of this game, a Wii U Virtual Console version of this game, and an NES Classic version of this game, which are all the Famicom version, the original Famicom version. But unfortunately, that's all in Japan. All of those, even the digital ones, they're all in Japan. The only versions we got here were the DS version, and then the PSP version, I think. I think there was one more. I want to say there was one more that was again a release of the 3D version. Steam, yeah. So, but all that's this version. All of it's this 3D version. If you want not the 3D version, you gotta play it either in Japanese or an unreleased version, like a fan version. So, yeah. That's that. So, just wanted to clear that up. If you have any questions about, like, Fantathon in general, or what the idea behind Fantathon is, be sure to check out the Fantathon page, forwardproductions.com/Fantathon. It's also in the description down below if you're watching on YouTube. So just check that out, and then if you have any other questions, feel free to comment, and I'll do my best to answer. Okay, so that's that. Second thing, I got a new webcam. So things look a lot nicer now. If you noticed last week, you may have noticed last week that, actually I'm going to grind outside. Also, drink a thing for the 10 months, dude. You probably noticed last week that my webcam looked like it was in 15 FPS. I thought my webcam was dying. Turns out it actually wasn't dying. It was just a stupid driver. What is that thing? What is this? What is this alien doing this? I've never seen this attack. It's a mandrake? That's the biggest mandrake I've ever seen. So anyways, yeah, I thought my webcam was dying, so I went ahead and purchased a new one. I was thinking about purchasing a new one anyways, because this one I've had for like 3 or 4 years. But then I found out later it was just a driver issue, so my other one is working, but we got this one. It looks great. I'm happy with it. It's 60 FPS. I look like I'm from the future, so I like it, and I think it looks good. The only issue is the cord isn't long enough. So I had to place it on, like, over here. Usually my webcam's over here, so it looks kind of weird. When I look at chat, it looks like I'm looking past you guys. I like to have it here, so, like, when I look at chat, I'm kind of looking at the webcam. But right now it's over to the right because the wire isn't long enough. I bought an extender, but the extender didn't work because the webcam would lag. I need one that's, like, got power, I think. I'm getting a hub. I think that'll work better because it has its own power. The cord, the extender was just a cord, and I guess it was too long, and it can't get to the computer fast enough, even though it's 3.0. I figured since it's 3.0, you could have a 100-foot cord and it'd be fine, but no, I don't think that works. So I have to get a USB hub and try it that way. So yeah, the angle is a bit weird, but things are looking good. It's high quality. I'm pretty happy with it. So yeah, that was that. What else? Okay. So I wanted to tell you guys this story. I've been having insurance issues lately, and I try not to talk about it too much because, you know, the whole point of at least my content is I try to be an escape. A lot of people tell me all the time my content is a great escape from garbage in real life. And so I try not to talk too much about negative things. Certainly I'm going to bring stuff up sometimes. When someone else brings up something that's bothering them in the chat, I try to talk about it. But I try not to dwell on it too long. But I wanted to tell you this story because it's funny. And it's not a sad story, it's a funny story. So through all these insurance issues I've been having, hold on, did he get revived? No, he didn't. How do I... Oh, the water thing. I don't know where... I guess it's just in one of these houses. Maybe in here. I need, like, the water fountain. That ain't it, Captain. It's not in the inn, is it? No. How's it going, Dry Guy? It's just gonna be in one of these random houses, I think. Yep. So, through all these insurance issues I've been having, I had to make like 19 phone calls yesterday to just a bajillion people. And one of the people I had to call was the hospital where my son came home from. We adopted our newborn son 3 months ago, and he was in the NICU, the newborn intensive care unit, for 6 weeks. So we had to visit every day for 6 weeks to go to the intensive care unit. And this was during, you know, what's going on right now. So you can imagine how ridiculous that was. But after he came home, so without getting like super far into adoption law because it's a lot, long story short, the adoption agency was financially responsible for my son until he came home from the NICU. So everything that happened before the NICU, they are financially responsible for. Once he came home, we are now financially responsible. Okay, so that's the long and short of it. So, all of the NICU stay, they're financially responsible for. But I guess in their files or whatever, it was never like correctly denoted that they needed to send the bills to the adoption agency if it was before that date. So I call up the hospital to talk about other things, other insurance things, because we've gone there several times for other appointments later that I have to pay for. And I was like, hey, listen, our insurance agency is like super dragging their feet, and we still don't have our new son on the insurance. So I'm just calling to like check to see if there's anything I need to do for you, or like, do I need to pay on any of these bills, or do I need to tell you to keep it until the insurance goes through or whatever. And the woman on the other line is like, okay, well, yeah, so thanks for calling, because we have this bill that we're going to be sending to you soon, and you're definitely going to want this to hit insurance. You don't want this, you know, on you. And I was like, well, yeah, you know, some of those bills are kind of expensive. And she goes, yeah, we're looking to send you this bill next week that's $165,000. And I was like, yeah, excuse me, what? $165,000? I've never seen 1/100th of that. What are you talking about, $165,000? That was an expensive dental treatment. Pump the brakes. So after talking to her for like a couple minutes, we found out that that was the NICU stay, and they just hadn't denoted it correctly to go to the adoption agency. So then I call my adoption agency and I'm like, hey, I got a number for you to call. You need to let them know that that's going to you. And she was laughing on the other line. She's like, man, that must have scared the crap out of you. I was like, you have no idea. She's like, you must have had a heart attack. I was like, I don't know if it's possible to have two, because I only have one heart, but I think I had two. So yeah, that was pretty funny. You know what? I always knew that intensive care units were expensive, and I always knew that like if you don't have insurance that'll cover it, you straight up can't do it. But I never knew the actual amount. You know what I mean? Like I had never looked into what the actual. I mean, that was 6 weeks, and that's middle ground. Like some kids are in there for 2 weeks, some are in for 6, some are in for 6 months, you know, depending on what it is. Could you imagine the bill if you had a child in the NICU for 6 months? Like,
what am I gonna do?
Holy cow. I couldn't even imagine. This is the kind of numbers that I won't see in my entire life, you know? Like, that's not a number I can scrounge up in years. Like, that's not a number if I save the rest of my life, I wouldn't be able to pay that off. It's pretty insane. What? These basilisks just look like giant lizards. So yeah, that's how my yesterday went. That was after like one of the longest days. I had to take both my sons to school, and then I had to take one to the doctor, and then back to school, and then and then I made like 16 phone calls before that. So I was already like, you know, pretty done with the day at that point. And then this woman's just like, yeah, we're gonna send you a bill for $165,000. Hope your insurance takes care of that. And I was extra scared because when I signed up for the insurance, I told them to make the active date when he came home. Because the adoption agency was responsible before that. So, if for some reason my adoption agency was like, never mind, or like, we never said that, you know, even my insurance wouldn't have covered it. So I was pretty afraid. I was like, oh no. Could you imagine if my insurance company was just like, or my adoption agency was just like, sorry, we wrote down the wrong date. That's on you. So yeah, interesting time. Think of the 101 bits D-Bull in PS5, Alex. Thank you so much for the 31 months. What a legend. Can I get into a fight? What in the world? Man. It's not Final Fantasy 2 anymore, I can tell you that. I would have gotten to like 19 fights in that time. So, yeah, that was that story. And then I just had one more thing I wanted to talk about in regards to YouTube. So, when we started this game last week, I had said that Final Fantasy 3 was the one I knew the least about. And it also was the one I heard the least about. We have conversations all the time on stream about Final Fantasy, as you can imagine, because it's what we play a lot. And no one, like, ever talks about Final Fantasy 3. Like, that's the one... People will say something like, oh, 1 is cool, but, you know, it's a little confusing to play nowadays, and 2 has the most ridiculous encounter rate and end boss or end dungeon, and you know, a lot of people either talk about how they like or dislike 1 and 2. 3, it just doesn't seem to come up very often. It's kind of like the most forgettable, I guess. And so when we started this, I said that you know, this one was just kind of forgettable and not super bad or super good, but just kind of in the middle, and that's kind of what I was expecting going into it. Well, according to the YouTube comments, that's not the case. According to the YouTube comments, everyone hates this game, and I didn't know that until now. But there were a lot of comments that were just like, in this version, I should be specific. This version, which is the only version we have here if you don't play fan-made stuff or emulators. So, yeah, there was a good amount of people that were pretty vocal about disliking this version of the game. So now I have a bit of a different opinion, like, maybe it's not so cut and dry in the middle. Maybe it's, a lot of people dislike it. So now I'm curious. So I'd actually like to know. You guys on Twitch can go ahead if you'd like. But on YouTube, I'd like you to comment if you're next to your keyboard, if you're watching this next to your keyboard. Just quickly comment, love it, hate it, never played it. Or a bigger opinion if you'd like. But love it, hate it, never played it. I'm curious to see. Just because I don't know what the general opinion of this game is now, because it seems to be pretty different depending on who you're talking to. But yeah, I'm curious to see. Do most people that played it liked it? Do most people that liked it played it didn't like it? A lot of people just haven't played it. Seems like on Twitch the majority has just never played it, which is not surprising to me because it came out in 2006. But yeah, I'm curious. So I'll read over those. I'll read over those throughout the week, and if I remember, I'll discuss it next week. I'm curious to see what people think. You know, just in general, because, like I said, going into it, it seemed like no one ever talked about it. So I was like, okay, I guess it's just down the middle. But then, after the first episode, I had a lot of people that were very vocal about specifically disliking this version of the game. So, I'm curious. And most people, anyone that's played like the Famicom version or a NES counterpart that's fan-made says that version's way better, which is unfortunate. It's very unfortunate when a remake of a game is so much worse than the original. That's like not what you want. If anything, a remake needs to be better at least, or comparable, you know. But it seems that most people are in agreement that this version is worse than the original. So that's no good. You know, that's definitely a negative towards it. My only real complaint with this game so far is it already feels a bit grindy, and I'm okay with grindy, but not this early. Like, I want to at least experience the game a bit before you start making me grind. I had to grind immediately. First dungeon was like, you haven't grinded yet? You're dead. And that's just not a good way to start the game, especially when the start of this game was added. Like, the start wasn't in the original. They added the start and made it brutally hard, which it's like, why? Why don't you make the start easy to, like, you know, get us into it, and then you can go for the difficulty? But no, it was like, we added this intro, screw you, you're dead. Welcome to Final Fantasy 3. So, yeah, I didn't really appreciate that. And then the story, I'm just totally lost already. I don't enjoy the story much at all, and that's just my first reaction to it. I'm sure I'll enjoy it more as we go, but my first reaction was like, wait, who's this? Who's this king? We're talking to Sid. We have an airship now. Now the airship's blown up. Crystal, what's going on? I wish they had kind of gone a bit easy with the story as well. Gone a bit slower with the story. Because the story is just what in the world. Why am I grinding now? Because every enemy in this mountain annihilates me. What's the easiest Final Fantasy game? To be completely honest, I usually say Final Fantasy VII. And it seems like a couple people in the chat agree. Yeah, it's just... And Final Fantasy VII isn't like... It's not easy in a bad way, in my opinion. It's easy to go through the game and just enjoy it, but then there's always the super hard stuff afterwards. And I don't think that Save for Sephiroth is necessarily easy either. It's just that to play the game and to get to the end, it's easy. Like, you don't have to grind, you don't have to go out of your way to pick up strong stuff. You can just kind of go. And as long as you have a general concept of materia, you'll be fine. So it's just not... It's a very easy game to get into. The learning curve is very low, you know. It's not necessarily that the enemies are weak, it's just that the learning curve is very low. It's very easy to know what you're doing and get into it and, you know, do what you gotta do. Some of the earlier games are very grindy and punishing. Some of the later games have bigger learning curves you have to understand before you can play the game effectively. But 7 is just kind of an easy one to pick up and play. I remember specifically getting to the end of the game as a kid, whereas a lot of the other games, if I had played them, I probably would have never finished. 7 also doesn't really have too many puzzly parts, where you like need to solve some kind of difficult puzzle that you may need to look up on the internet to figure out or something. Like, 7 is just a very simple and easy game to get through. Now, is there more difficult stuff to do? Certainly, but just to play it, I think it's one of the easiest, if not the easiest. It's also pretty easy to break 7, but that, you know, it's up to your own interpretation as to whether or not you would have figured that out as a kid or not. Desi, thank you so much for the 7 months. Patches, thank you for the 4 months. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. So generous this morning. And Arco, how's it going, my man? Thanks for the bits. Yeah, Mystic Quest was pretty easy because you could kind of just spam the little, like, battle tournament things to level up really fast. I kind of have a weird opinion of Mystic Quest. I actually kind of liked Mystic Quest a lot. when we played Mystic Quest, everyone was like, "You're gonna hate this game," and by the end of it, I was like, "I kind of like this game." Like, I kind of enjoyed it quite a bit. I don't know. I guess it's just kind of a simple game. It kind of reminded me of like a mobile game where you could just kind of simply like zone out and just kind of press buttons. And I don't know. I kind of enjoyed it. I think the problem with Mystic Quest is the idea behind Mystic Quest was the Western world, they're all idiots. Give them a stupid, easy Final Fantasy game. So it has like a negative connotation to it. You know? And I totally get that. Like, it does feel like it has a negative connotation. Like, oh, these stupid Westerners. Here's this super simple Final Fantasy game. You're not smart enough for Final Fantasy VI. Have this. But, yeah. Let's go, monkey. Yeah, Refia is suddenly doing damage. I don't know what I did to, like, fix her. Because last time, she was doing no damage. We couldn't figure out why. But now she's doing damage, so I don't know. Maybe she just had to level up a bit. Maybe her job level was low or something. I don't know how everything works yet. And I don't want you guys to tell me, but right now, my thought process is that monks probably are very dependent on their job level because they don't have weapons. That's kind of what I'm thinking, because, like, see her job level's, like, really low? With Lunith, the thief job level started at 1, but at least he had some weapons, right? So that kind of like helped. But Refia had nothing, and her job level was 1. So that's probably why she was just doing like nothing at all. Either that, or she has some weapons that she can equip later, and I just haven't found them yet. But that's just my thought process right now. Oh, you know what? I just realized Lunith is... Do I need to... I forget. I forget if sleeping gets rid of petrification. That'd be kind of funny, in theory, if that worked. Like, you just take your friend who's petrified and, like, lay him down in a bed and they would just get healed. It's fine, just lay him in a bed. He'll be fine. I slept like a log. Really? Because Lunith slept like a rock. Yeah, I didn't like it. I think I have to use the fountain, maybe. Wait a second. Does this fountain heal or just revive? Isn't there one that revives and one that heals? Yeah. We don't have a heal one here. So I think I have to use a gold needle. Actually. If I had a healing fountain, I could use that, but I don't think this town has that. Only the first town had that. So I gotta use a gold needle. Which means I should probably buy more. You had a nightmare that you were a muffler. I woke up exhausted. Excellent. What the? Do they give you a discount for buying more in this game? That is really weird. Like, That's not just weird from a Final Fantasy standpoint. That's weird from an RPG standpoint. I don't think I've ever played an RPG that did that. I can't think of a single RPG I've played that's done that. That is weird. I kind of like it. I kind of like it because if you're already grinding for an item, it helps to grind a bit more and then get, like, more in bulk. If you're already going to buy 10 of something, it's nice to, like, save some money. It's kind of cool. Alright. +1. +1 in the win column for Final Fantasy 3. Doo-doo. Doo-doo. There you go. 18 damage. Guess it's kind of better. How's it going, Lago? Good to see you, man. Yeah, I actually talked about that yesterday or last week, Alvin. There's a part like in the middle of the battle theme where it literally does like the same exact drum line from 9. It does that like that starts with 9. The whole thing kind of sounds like it, but that in particular is like an exact copy. Well, I haven't played those 2 games, Venom. I'll make that realization when I play them. That's cool though. I never knew that. Nope, I have not played 4 or 6, believe it or not. I understood the gravity of 6 since I dated a girl in high school who did like 6 challenges back before it was cool. And I told her I hadn't played 6 and she was like, 6 is literally the best one. And so ever since then I've like known how good 6 is. But when I started the stream, I was like, I don't want to do 6 until we really like do an actual Let's Play of it. I don't want to just play it on my own time. I want to experience it with you guys first, so that's why I held off. We need to talk. Yeah, and then the relationship ended quickly after that, you know. She was like, Kefka? And I was like, bless you. And she was like, it's over. That's the last straw. That's the final straw. Chrono Trigger, I have a full playthrough up, Venom. And Super Mario RPG, I'm also saving for a very special occasion. I've seen a lot more of Super Mario RPG, though, actually. I tried to keep my eyes away from Final Fantasy VI, but Super Mario RPG I've seen quite a bit of. I've seen, like, the final boss and some of the gameplay mechanics, some of the characters. I think I watched a speedrun of it one time. So, I know a bit more about Super Mario RPG and why it's good. All I know about 6 is Kefka's one of the greatest villains of all time, if not the greatest. And Terra's theme is straight up the best video game song of all time. Terra is literally my favorite video game song, and I have not played the game it came from. That's how much I love that song. I just straight up, it's my favorite song. And I haven't even played the game. It's that good. But that's all I know. That's all I know about the game. Oh, I also know that everyone rides Transformers in that game. I know that. I know, like, the intro cinematic where she's in the armor. And I was like, Transformers, more than meets the eye. And then that's all I know. Yeah, so like, yeah, I don't want to get too far into it because we haven't played yet. And I don't want to spoil it for anyone that is going to be watching it for the first time as well as me playing it for the first time. But yeah, I've heard that Kefka is one of the greatest villains of all time. And the reason mostly is because he's actually evil. Because a lot of Final Fantasy bosses, or a lot of Final Fantasy villains and movie villains, an important thing about being a villain is that you side with them at one point. You understand their thought process. They're still evil, but you understand their thought behind what they're doing. That's why the Joker from Batman is such a good villain, because he's all about, what's the word I'm looking for? Not really chaos, kind of chaos, but the opposite of justice. I guess injustice. But what is the word I'm looking for? Like when there's no governing body. What is that word? Anarchy. Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't think of the word anarchy. So he's all about anarchy, and Batman's all about justice. So Batman's willing to go even past the law to bring justice, whereas Joker is willing to go past everything for anarchy. And when the Joker talks, he brings you onto his side, and you kind of understand why he does what he does, and that's why he's a good villain. Sephiroth is the same way. Sephiroth is such a good villain because he has this part of his story that is sad and unfortunate, because he's evil, but he's not evil. He's evil because he's misunderstood. He doesn't understand what actually happened to him, and he goes crazy because he thinks something happened that didn't, and it's kind of like this sad story of what could have happened if he actually knew. So, and he was also honorable at one time. So he's a tragic villain, and Final Fantasy loves to do tragic villains as well, because Final Fantasy takes a lot of stuff from Shakespeare, like we talked about last week. Final Fantasy has always taken a ton of inspiration from Shakespeare, and so tragic villains are something they do really well. So that's kind of what a lot of villains do and what a lot of villains are about, especially in the Final Fantasy series. But from what I've heard, and I'll make my own opinion of it once we play it, but from what I've heard, Kefka is not that. Kefka's just pure evil. He's like the Wicked Witch of the West, like Chipper said. Oh, actually, no. You're right. It's not the Wicked Witch of the West. The Wicked Witch of the West was actually, like, also tragic, because she was just trying to get her slippers back. But anyways, yeah, he's like pure evil, so he's just straight up the devil. And so that's why a lot of people like him. But we'll see. I'll make my own conjecture when we play it. See what I think. But that's just what I've heard. There's villains you love and there's villains you love to hate, right? Kefka's like love to hate. Sephiroth is definitely love. Like, some people even think that Sephiroth was almost right in what he did. It's funny, because I'm kind of on the side of Sephiroth was in the right, at least in his own head, until he started killing people. Like, when the mansion scene happens, it's like, you know, man, I totally understand why this happened, and why you're like this, and why you want to go get Jenova, and I totally get that. And then he leaves the mansion and kills everyone for no reason. And then you're like, okay, I guess you're evil. But for a second, you have that moment where you're like on his side, and you're like, it's not you, it's Hojo, and you're just misunderstood, and if we could just make you understand, we could get you back on our side. And then he goes out and kills everyone in the town, and you're like, okay, I guess you're evil. You know? But there's that moment where you like kind of second guess yourself, and that's what makes Sephiroth such a good character. That's what makes him one of the best villains. Is that you straight up second guess yourself as to whether or not he's the evil one or not at one point. And then he goes and kills everyone, and you're like, okay. I guess we gotta do the thing, you know? I guess we gotta pull out the Omni Slash and give you the business. You killed our whole city, our whole town, all of our friends. So, guess we gotta do the deed. But we're on your side for a little bit. Hojo is a lot like Joker. He is. He's that mix. He's the stir the pot guy, you know? He just wants to stir the pot. He just wants to see what chaos he can create. At first, it seems like Hojo is like super into just pushing science as far as it can go. He's like the stereotypical mad scientist who only cares about his research and only cares about pushing science to its limit. But near the end of the game, it becomes this like he just wants to stir the pot. He just wants to make everything insane. He just wants to see how ridiculous things can go. He just wants to see, you know, what the end result of Genova is. So, but at first he's like that stereotypical evil scientist that's just like, science is the answer to everything and we just have to figure out science. But Hojo, like I've talked about it a lot, Hojo is so evil. Like he never gets to the point where he's like, I want to push science to better humanity. Because some evil scientists, they do what they do because they want to like save humanity, but they just do it in a bad way. Hojo is never like that. Hojo is just like, screw humans, I just want to do science. Like, whoever I kill, I don't care, I just want to do science. He's never like, I want to push science to the point where we can then make the human race better. He's like, no, I just want to I just want to make crazy monsters. Like, that's just all I want to do. So, but there are some cool, like, evil scientist stories where he was really trying to be good, but the way he went about it was bad, you know? But that's not Hojo. Not at all. He's evil from the beginning. He's just, like, crazy. He's just, like, super insane person. Yeah. Pretty much. Speaking of just straight up evil characters, Final Fantasy II did a good job. Like, you could tell that Final Fantasy II is when Square started to bring more of the Shakespearean aspects to the series. But Final Fantasy I is a good example of when they were still just kind of doing Dungeons and Dragons type deal. So they just kind of had good guys and bad guys. So the good guys in Final Fantasy I are just the warriors of light. They're just warriors who are fighting for justice, and that's it. And the antagonist is just evil chaos guy who wants evil. So that's a good example of that. But see, that's why the antagonist of 1 isn't as cool as like Kefka, because he doesn't have any development. He's just evil guy that you fight at the end of the game. His only development is, oh, he's that guy we fought at the beginning, and that's it. Like, whoa, we fought him before, and now here he is again. That's his only development. If you're gonna make a villain that's just straight evil and has no, like, you know, tragedy to him or something that we understand, then you have to have a lot of, like, development as to why he's so evil. Instead of just, like, he is bad guy. But it worked for Final Fantasy 1, because it was Final Fantasy 1. I should save before I try this. I was going to try to grind in there and see if I can get some more experience than these enemies out here. We're already level 10. I feel like I've done nothing, yet we're level 10. Then again, I also feel like we've done everything, because this story is whack. Yeah, the Emperor in 2 was just kind of like big evil guy, but then, what's his name? Leon? The who was your friend? I'm forgetting his name. Who was your friend who was evil? Did it start with an L? No, I don't think it did. It was Leon. Okay, good. I said Leon, and then I was like, that can't be right, because that's like Squall's name in Kingdom Hearts. They wouldn't use that twice. But yeah, so Leon was like kind of multi-dimensional in a way. He was like evil, but helped us. So he was kind of interesting, but I didn't like the ending for him. He was just kind of like, alright, see you later, I'm still evil. There was like no building upon it. Maybe that was the point, though. The point was like he can't change, but he could help to save the world, but he can't change. They're trying to make him like Darth Vader, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. He was an I mean, I will say he was more interesting than the other characters, at least. Because the other characters were just like, we are good guys. Defeat Emperor. Princess. I didn't really like the characters much. Ooh, thanks. I'm probably going to need that. How's it going, OMG? I'm wondering if I should stop stealing, but it's actually kind of nice when we're grinding to steal a bunch of stuff. I probably have a ton of potions now. Yeah, I said that in a chat the other day, and everyone was like, oh my god. Yeah, Final Fantasy X turns 20 next year. It'll be 20 years since Final Fantasy X came out. Also, I really like how in this game I can actually use all the items with all the characters. Equipping items is kind of big yikes. Stop saying that. It's kind of crazy for me to think that Final Fantasy 13 is 10 years old, because I remember going to the midnight release of 13. So I actually like remember that moment in my head vividly, and it was 10 years ago. Stop. That's what someone just said. Hold on. I'll fact check. Hold on. Final Fantasy 3 release date. Or not 3, 13. December 17th, 2009. So, in a couple months, it's going to be 11 years. Not even 10. In a few months, it's going to be 11. Oh, no. Yeah, I got 22 potions. Nice. Might as well start using them. This flower looks like you can pick it up or something, but you can't. These flowers building on this rocky mountain remind me of the end of Advance Wars Dual Strike, where the flower blooms at the end. Oh, man. Yeah, so it's been 11 years since I was in... man, when did I go to the release? Let's see, 2009? So... Oh my god. I was a junior in high school? It's been 11 years since I was a junior in high school. What? Well, that goes without saying, Jas, because anything is an improvement from Final Fantasy II's dungeon design. Final Fantasy II's dungeon design was, here's a maze with a bunch of doors, and the last door is always the answer. And the other doors are always an empty room with nothing in it. Someone had commented and said that a lot of those empty rooms actually had stuff in them, like off to the side secretly, but no one would ever check all of those, because there's like a fight every other step, and you'd have to go into every single door and check every single corner of the room and get into like 9 fights every single dungeon. Like, oh my, no one would ever do that. Only if you already knew they were there. Arrow. Is that level 2 or level 1? Because, oh, it is level 2. Nice. Let's try arrow. I only have one. Wait, can I hit both? Yes, I can. I'm guessing this game is like 2, where hitting both just does less damage. Holy! That's the one. I'm wondering if they're weak against arrow because they're flying, like they're birds, or if arrow is just mega strong. Also, I don't know where I'm supposed to go, but I'm gonna get out and save because I got all these chests. Let's see if I do fire on both, how much damage it does. How's it going, Happy? Good to see you. Alright, Ruffia's doing some damage. Okay, I don't know. Casting spells on all seems to be doing a lot of damage. It did 101 when I cast on all. Okay, yeah. I mean, still though. That was more than half. Did 177 on 1 and 101 on 2, so seems like casting all is a pretty good deal. This song sounds very Pokemon, doesn't it? Like with the horn? I just kind of realized that. And like the da 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 da, like it sounds like a Pokemon, like one of the end game dungeons or something. Victory Road. To the Elite Four.